to $50,000.
We've heard a lot about those plans in recent days. Your campaign slogan is a new way forward, and it's time to turn the page. You've been vice president for 3.5 years. So what are you turning the page from?
Well, first of all, turning the page.
That is a haymaker right there, Bret. You just rocked her jaw. You know, like when you see a boxer get cracked right on the chin, and then they start walking around looking like they drunk a fifth of Hennessy, and then they start twirling around, and then you see him just, whoa, there he goes, and slam and hit their head on the canvas. That's what